The wooden sign was hammered into the ground right next to the mailbox, its red letters screaming against the peaceful green of the pasture. Miriam stared at it, the basket of eggs in her hand feeling like lead. It wasn't just land, it was her grandfather's legacy. It was the soil where her mother was buried. Inside the house, the bishop was drinking coffee with her father, and she could hear the low murmur of their voices. They weren't talking about the auction, though they were talking about a wedding that would save the farm, but crush her soul. She looked toward the barn, hoping to see Samuel, but the doors were closed. She was alone. The sun rose over Lancaster County with a brilliance that made the dew on the wheat fields look like scattered diamonds. It was June, the time of the first hay cutting, and the air smelled sweet with clover and damp earth. On the Stoltzfus farm, the day began at 4:30 a.m., just as it had for 4 generations. Miriam Stoltzfus, 21 years old, with hair the color of dried corn silk, moved through the morning chores with practiced efficiency. She lit the propane lamps in the kitchen, the hiss of the gas, the only sound in the quiet house. Her mung had passed 3 winters ago, and since then, the weight of the household had rested on Miriam's shoulders. Her father, Abram, sat in his rocking chair by the stove. His breathing was raspy, a lingering souvenir from a bout of pneumonia that had nearly taken him last winter. He was a good man, a pious man, but he was tired, and a tired farmer cannot fight the weeds, the weather, and the bank all at once. "Coffee is ready." "Dead," Miriam said softly, pouring the dark liquid into a thick ceramic mug. Abram nodded, his hands shaking slightly as he took it. "Did you see Samuel this morning?" he asked. "He is in the lower field, mending the fence," Miriam replied, turning away so her father wouldn't see the softness in her eyes when she spoke the name. Samuel Fisher was their neighbor's son, but he spent more time on the Stoltzfus land than his own. He was 23, broad-shouldered and quiet, with hands that could calm a spooked horse or fix a delicate clock mechanism. He wasn't wealthy, he was the youngest of 8 sons, which meant he would inherit no land. He worked for wages, saving penny by penny for a future that seemed very far away. Miriam watched him through the window as the sun crested the hill. He was driving posts into the ground, his white shirt already damp with sweat. He paused, wiping his brow, and looked toward the house. Even from this distance, Miriam felt a tether connecting them. It was a bond forged in silence, in shared glances during Sunday service, and in the quiet moments of husking corn or milking cows. But it was a bond that had never been spoken aloud. By mid-July, the heat in Lancaster was oppressive. The corn grew tall, but the debts grew taller. The medical bills for Abram's hospital stay, combined with a poor harvest the previous year, had created a hole they couldn't dig out of. One humid Tuesday, a black buggy pulled up the long driveway. It wasn't Samuel, it was Bishop Eli, accompanied by Isaac Zook. Isaac Zook was a pillar of the community. He was 50 years old, a widower with a sprawling, prosperous dairy farm and a house with indoor plumbing, a luxury allowed in their district for health reasons. He was a stern man, practical and humorless. He needed a mother for his 4 children and a wife to run his household. Miriam served them iced tea on the porch, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She knew why they were here. "Abram," Bishop Eli said, stroking his long gray beard, "the community sees your struggle. We cannot let a brother lose his land to the English bankers. It is not our way." Abram nodded, looking at his boots. "I have prayed, Bishop, but the money is not there. Isaac here has a solution," the bishop continued, gesturing to the older man. Isaac cleared his throat. He didn't look at Miriam. He looked at the fields. "I am in need of a wife, Abram. Your Miriam is a hard worker. She is pious and strong. If we were to join our households, the debts of the Stoltzfus farm would become my concern. I would pay the bank. Miriam stood frozen by the screen door. The cicadas screamed in the trees, drowning out her own gasp. It was a transaction, a business deal, her life for the land. I will give you a week to consider, Isaac said, finally glancing at Miriam with a look that was appraising, like one might look at a sturdy heifer at an auction. That evening, Miriam found Samuel in the barn. He was brushing down the workhorses, the rhythmic swish-swish of the brush filling the air. He stopped when he saw her. He saw the tears she was trying to hold back. "What is it?" Samuel asked, his voice rough with sudden worry. He dropped the brush and took a step toward her, breaking the physical distance usually kept between unmarried folks. "The bank," Miriam choked out. And Isaac Zook. She didn't have to explain. In a small community, everyone knew Isaac was looking for a wife. Samuel's face went pale, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. "He wants to buy you," Samuel said, his voice low and dangerous. "He wants to save my father," Miriam corrected, a tear finally escaping. "If I say no, Dad loses the farm. He loses everything his father gave him. Where will he go, Samuel? He is too sick to start over. And what about us?" Samuel whispered. The words hung in the dusty air, heavy and sweet. It was the first time he had acknowledged us. "There is no us, Samuel," Miriam sobbed. "Not if you have no land. Not if I have to save this farm." The week of consideration was a slow torture. Miriam prayed until her knees were bruised. She looked for a sign, a miracle, a hidden jar of gold. But there was only the relentless heat and the pile of overdue notices on the kitchen table. 3 days before the decision was due, a summer storm rolled in. It wasn't just rain, it was a deluge. The sky turned a bruised purple, and the wind whipped the corn stalks until they snapped. Lightning struck the old oak tree near the lower barn to barn, where the Stoltzfus family stored their year's supply of hay. Miriam was in the kitchen when she heard the crack, followed by the terrifying roar of flames. "The barn says screamed." She ran out into the rain, her bonnet flying off. Samuel was already there, running from the fields, shouting for water. But hay burns hot and fast. Within minutes, the structure was a towering inferno against the dark sky. Neighbors came running from all directions, buggies splashing through the mud. The men formed a bucket brigade, their silhouettes dancing against the orange glow. But it was too late for the hay. They managed to save the animals and the main house. But the winter feed was gone. The tractor and old steel-wheeled relic allowed for belt power was a twisted ruin. The next morning, the farm smelled of wet ash and despair. Abram stood by the ruins, his shoulders slumped in defeat. "It is a sign," he whispered. "God is telling me to let go." Isaac Zook arrived later that morning. He surveyed the damage, shaking his head. "A tragedy, Abram. But my offer stands. In fact, it is more needed now than ever. You cannot buy feed for the winter with no money." He turned to Miriam. "Sunday, we will announce it after church on Sunday." Miriam looked at her father's broken form. She looked at the smoking ruins of the barn. She looked at Samuel, who was in the distance, covered in soot, shoveling debris. He wouldn't look at her. He knew he couldn't compete with Isaac's wealth. "Yes," Miriam whispered. Sunday, the days leading up to Sunday, were gray, despite the summer sun. Miriam went through the motions of baking bread, sewing patches, and gardening. She felt like a ghost haunting her own life. She avoided Samuel, seeing the pain in his eyes was too much to bear. Samuel, for his part, worked like a man possessed. He was helping clear the barn site, working from dawn until long after dusk. He barely spoke to anyone. Saturday night arrived. The singing The social gathering for the youth was happening at the Miller farm. Miriam didn't want to go, but her father insisted. Go, Miriam. Be young for one last night before you take on the duties of a wife and mother. She sat on a hay bale at the singing, the harmonies of the German hymns washing over her Sephaltnum. Suddenly, a shadow fell over her. It was Samuel. He wasn't singing. He was wearing his Sunday best, his hat in his hands. "Walk with me," he said. It wasn't a request. They walked away from the light of the lanterns, down the lane toward the creek. The moon was full, casting a silver light on the road. "I am leaving," Samuel said. Miriam stopped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Leaving for Rumspringa?" "No," Samuel said, "leaving for good." "I cannot stay here. Miriam, I cannot watch you marry Isaac Zook. I cannot watch you raise his children and pour his coffee. It would kill me. Samuel, please." Miriam wept. "I have no choice. It is for dead. There is always a choice," Samuel argued, his voice cracking. "But it is about money. It is always about money." He reached into his vest pocket and pulled out a small, worn leather pouch. He pressed it into her hand. "Dig Italiano." "What is this?" "It is my savings," Samuel said. 5 years of wages. I was saving for a down payment on a few acres near the creek. I wanted to build a house there. For you." Miriam opened the pouch. It was a thick roll of bills, thousands of dollars, but not enough to pay the farm debt, not even close. "Samuel, I can't take this." "Keep it," he said, turning away. "Use it to buy your wedding dress. Or give it to your father. I don't care. I don't need it where I'm going." He walked away into the darkness, leaving Miriam standing alone in the moonlight, holding the weight of his sacrifice in her hands. Sunday morning, the church service was held in the Byler's shop. The men sat on one side, the women on the other. The preaching seemed to go on for hours. Miriam felt sick. After the service, the announcements would be made. Her engagement would be official. The bishop stood up. The room went silent. "Brothers and sisters," the bishop began. "We have matters to discuss." Before he could continue, the back door of the shop opened. A stir went through the congregation. It was Samuel Fisher, but he wasn't alone. Walking next to him was a man in an English suit, a man with a briefcase, and behind them, Miriam Stoltzfus, looking confused but hopeful. Samuel walked to the center of the room. This was highly irregular. Young men did not interrupt the bishop. "Bishop," Samuel said, his voice steady but loud. "I ask for a moment." Bishop Eli frowned, but nodded. "Speak, Samuel." Samuel turned to the congregation. "We are a community that bears one another's burdens. That is our law, Galatians says too." He pointed to the Englishman. "This man is a buyer for the Heritage Preservation Trust. He buys antique timber rights and conservation easements." Samuel looked at Miriam. "I went to him yesterday. I offered him the walnut grove on the back of the Stoltzfus land. The trees will not be cut down, but the land will be protected from development forever. In exchange, he pays a fee." The Englishman nodded. "It's a significant sum, enough to clear the lien on the farm and rebuild the barn." The room erupted in whispers. Isaac Zook stood up, his face red. "This is business on the Lord's day. This is survival." Samuel shot back, his eyes blazing. "And it is love." He looked at Isaac. "You have money, Isaac. You have land. You do not need Miriam to save you. But this farm needs a family. Samuel turned to Abram. The money is yours, Abram. The debt is gone. You do not need to sell your daughter to save your home. Abram looked at the Englishman, then at Samuel, and finally at Miriam. He saw the way Miriam was looking at Samuel as if he were the sun and the moon combined. Abram began to weep. The camera moves to the front porch of the Stoltzfus house. 3 months later, it is October. The leaves are turning brilliant shades of orange and gold. A new barn is being raised. Hundreds of men are climbing the wooden skeleton, hammering in unison. The sound is like a heartbeat strong, steady, communal. Miriam is at the long table set up in the yard, serving food to the workers. She is laughing, a sound that hasn't been heard on the farm in years. She walks over to where Samuel is drinking from a dipper at the water pump. He is sweaty, covered in sawdust, and smiling. You gave up the walnut grove, she says softly. That was the best timber on the land. I like the oak trees better anyway. Samuel teases, wiping his mouth. And you gave up your savings, she adds. To pay the taxes. I made a good investment, Samuel says, his eyes locking with hers. And what did you get in return, Samuel Fisher? She asks, stepping closer. Ignoring the crowd, Samuel reaches out and brushes a smudge of flour from her cheek. I got the only thing I ever wanted. I got to stay. And I got you. The scene fades as they stand together, the frame of the new barn rising behind them against the blue autumn sky. The farm is safe. The debt is paid. And love, simple and stubborn, has won.